I have a friend who teaches biology at another institution who was very happy with what they had found with the Lab Archives product. They bragged about how their students loved it. They bragged about how the TAs could contribute to it. And I was in a position where I was advising faculty on what to do in their classes, how to use different technologies. And so I looked at it pretty closely and I liked what I saw. And then when I started here at Tri-C a little over a year ago, I was able to implement it here in the classes I teach. So in January of this year, I was asked to teach a laboratory course online. And there were several challenges associated with that. The primary one, as far as the students were concerned, was how were they going to submit information. And so a digital lab notebook allowed me to give them access to not only the protocols for the experiments, but access to a way to submit information both that they typed, that they uploaded from photos from their cameras or from their laptops. They were able to submit all of their data through the digital lab notebook and allowed me to create experiments that could be done remotely, but were academically and scientifically rigorous and illustrated the concepts we were looking for. I was introduced to Lab Archives by a colleague who teaches biology and was very happy with the performance of the product in terms of how her students interacted with it, how she was able to correct things that potentially were flaws on the fly, and how her TAs were able to contribute as well. So there's two benefits that I really like. The first is that I'm able to upload experiments and continually revise them on the fly. I find improvements, I find enhancements, and I can do that quickly and easily. The second is when a student has a problem with a lab, I can go into their notebook and look at exactly what they're looking at the same time. So I'm able to see the exact same thing they see. I'd also like to add that I was so happy with how the product worked for my online students that this fall I'm implementing it with my face-to-face students so that they can be doing the exact same experiments, but they're going to be able to use the technology they all carry in their pocket in our laboratory, or if they prefer, they're going to be taking notes on a piece of paper and then uploading that information to the digital lab notebook after they complete the lab. Well, cost is a big one. I wrote all of the content that I use in my lab notebooks, so they're no longer having to purchase a lab manual published by an outside publisher. And I'm not charging them for that content, that's my choice. So they pay for access to the online lab notebook. In addition, they really like using technology that they've grown up with. They like using their phones, but many of them still take notes on paper, and then they just take pictures and upload the pictures. So they really enjoy that fact. So what I really like about the digital lab notebook and in particular Lab Archives is the simplicity of the interface. I can click one button and be able to get my whole course set up, and then I add the content that I want. But the basic structure is there, which is very helpful. I can add things as I need to, and even when I delete things, I can still get them back. They're never completely gone. So while I don't have data to completely support this, what I have noticed is that my students are thinking about what they're doing. They're not simply collecting data and submitting that data for reporting. They're thinking about what the data means. And that's truly what I want to have them do. I'd recommend Lab Archives with absolutely no reservations. It's been easy to use. It's allowed me to spend time developing my content and not worrying about paper. And for me, that's a big deal. One of my major goals in adopting the app was to eliminate paper, both the paper lab manual and the notebooks and papers my students handed in, and it has far exceeded those expectations. I no longer have paper coming to me. So prior to using Lab Archives, our students purchased a published lab manual that was customized for our institution, and that cost was nearly $150. Since changing to Lab Archives, they're now paying for access to the application, and they're buying their own goggles, and the total cost of that is 1/4 of what they were paying previously.